Well, hello there, and welcome to Becoming More Me. I am your host, Teresa Lear-Levine. I'm an EFT master practitioner, hypnotherapist, and your guide to rewiring your subconscious and nourishing your nervous system so that you can show up in your life and your business as your truest, most authentic, and powerful self. And today, we're going to talk about something that I would imagine is going to hit for every one of you listening. It's something that I don't know anybody that hasn't lived in one way or another, and it shows up with all the clients that I work with too. So today we are looking at some of those things that block our authenticity and block us from being our most powerful. And it kind of begins with the pressure to be good, this good girl or good boy programming, this pressure to please, to be agreeable, to be liked, to not rock the boat, and to say yes, even when your entire body, every cell in it, is like, no. Does this sound familiar? So for most of my life, I really thought that I wasn't in this conditioning. And there were some real aha moments for me last year when I realized how much this was present and how much it did affect me. I was thinking that because I had grown up kind of, rebellious and suggestive and in tune with myself and really feeling me, that it wasn't that way. And then I kind of had these recollections of all the times when that was kind of like shut down, or there was an expectation to show up differently. I remember I used to love creating music videos with my friends, and there was one particular day that we were like channeling our inner Madonna and kind of like a virgining it around on the floor in our leotards and things. And we were young. I think we had like socks stuffed in our leotard tops so that it looked like we had boobs because there was nothing. And I remember like being taken aside by my mom and told like, nope, we don't do that, and you probably need to put some more clothes on and do something else. And, she wasn't meaning any harm or anything else. I think it was just, it really kind of caught her off guard to see, we were probably like 8, 10, I don't know, and probably caught her off guard, but it's like that forms some of this like subconscious conditioning that like the expectation is different than the reality. And that's just one like super subtle example that I think a lot of people could relate to, where you showed up thinking that one thing was good, and you're literally like, you're feeling yourself. And that's what authenticity is, to feel yourself. And then our authenticity gets shut down when we're basically led away from that which feels like ourself. So in retrospect, and in seeing that and uncovering that through some deep healing work in the last couple of years, I could see like how I kind of wore that good girl badge without even realizing it. You know, being a helper, a high achiever, not asking for much, and like trying to handle everything. But underneath of that, there's a suppression of the truth. There's a version of you that is crossing your own boundaries and that's trying to build success on top of this like cracked foundation. Sometimes that looks like building it on top of burnout. And the truth is that I was really disconnected from who I really was. And if I look over, I mean, hindsight's 2020, so I can kind of look over events of my life and, like my first marriage and divorce and early parenting for me and things like that. I can really see where that disconnect came through. But like I said before, the consciousness of it, the awareness of it wasn't there. So I just, kept on doing my thing. And that's okay. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And a lot has come through for me in recent years about how much I do relate with this. Because for a while there was a part of me that was like, no, 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 I don't have good girl conditioning. I'm good, and that's not me. And it's me. It's me here. So, here's the wild thing, is that oftentimes for those of us presenting with these things from the outside, it like looks like we're thriving. But usually there is this cycle of like overwhelm and resentment and just this like quiet heartbeat of self-abandonment. So Like, why do we do this, right? People pleasing and good girl conditioning are not just like annoying habits. They are survival strategies rooted in childhood, where we learned that being easy, helpful, quiet was the safest way to stay loved and stay accepted. And those strategies don't just vanish when we grow up and we, start a business, a career, a family, an intimate relationship. They show up everywhere. They show up everywhere. So it shows up in your inability to say no. In business, it might show up in your prices. It might show up in a really overbooked schedule that leaves no room for you and your own self-care. It could show up in your hesitation to speak the truth, even when you know it and you feel it. And it can oftentimes in relationships, especially partnerships and spousal relationships, can show up as resentment and exhaustion. And it's like, it's not the kind of exhaustion that like some green juice or supplements can fix either. It is like, it's really like down to the core. I really wanted to look into these things further. This has been a really hot topic in my Becoming More Me community, and I definitely invite you to come check it out over there. If you're not already a member, then go to my community's on School, which is SKOOL. So you'll go to school.com/discovery. And from there, type in my name, Teresa Lear Levine. The Becoming More Me community will pop right up and you can click and request to join it. If you're already a member, um, and you're listening to this and going to the community around this time, you're going to see like we have a whole poll up about this and stuff. And it's been the inspiration for me to do a free workshop. So my next live free workshop is going to be on May 9th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called From Approval to Authenticity, Breaking the Rules That Break You. And I definitely invite you to register and join us. Again, it's free. All you need to do is go to teresalearlevine.org/workshop, and you'll be able to register and join us live on May 9th and experience real transformative shifts to how you relate and feel about people pleasing, your boundaries, and your whole good girl, good boy mentality. And it's going to be the kind of workshop where real transformation is happening while we are together and in the moment. So definitely, if you can, clear your calendar, be there live, and participate. Because if you're someone who is done with the feeling that you're always abandoning yourself in the name of being good, and probably also a high achieving human, like most of the people in my community, then you're not going to want to miss the opportunity to explore why these habits are sabotaging your abundance, how this programming is keeping you stuck in burnout and invisibility, and what it really takes to rewire those patterns for good in your body and your mind. So the good news is that this workshop it's not just like learning and knowledge and information, okay? Because I know firsthand what it's like to just collect information and knowledge and then keep showing up in your life recreating patterns. Information doesn't solve it. If information alone did solve things, then I don't think my community would have any problems because there's so many smart cookies in there and they're full of knowledge and wisdom and information. But the part that hasn't clicked yet is how the nervous system and how the subconscious mind do not care how much you know. So, like, you can be super smart. You can understand this programming, where it came from, what you learned from your parents or your siblings or anybody in your life of importance as you were growing up, or even how it's showing up for you now. You might understand where your boundaries are lacking and how it's making, your marriage or your friendships or your relationship with your kids really complicated in ways that you don't want to continue. But knowing it isn't the same as transforming it. It's just theory. So, in this workshop, we're going to be doing real time transformation together. Okay. We're going to be doing some EFT tapping, and there's going to be an option to participate in hypnosis as well as group coaching and Q&A and really be able to specifically work on your issues, things that are specific to your life, your business, your relationships, your health with me live in these sessions. So it's like if you've ever found yourself thinking that you know you want something, but you're just not following through on it, or you're exhausted trying to keep everybody else happy and you want more, but you're afraid what other people are going to think, this workshop is for you. So grab your spot, teresalearlevine.org/workshop, because there's so much to explore here. Because boundaries aren't just about like keeping things out. Okay. In fact, that's not really what they are, but it's more about keeping your energy in. And so many people that I talk to are leaking their energy. So when you don't have healthy boundaries, okay, and I've seen people that have unhealthy boundaries where they are like intended to keep people out, they're intended to be a wall, and they're intended to prevent connection, intimacy, visibility, and things like that. Those are not the kind of boundaries we are working on. In fact, if those are the kind of boundaries that you are holding or wanting to hold, then there's other work to do that will also come through in this workshop. But when you don't set healthy boundaries, you end up resenting the person you're trying to please. It's totally one of those things that backfires, and your nervous system needs boundaries in order to feel safe. It's not about being mean. It's about being nourished and regulated and grounded. And that's what so many people are missing when they are approaching relationships, business, their health, and they're stuck in people pleasing. And they're also very dysregulated and ungrounded. It's so much harder to create the boundaries that you want and to hold them, because your nervous system needs to create the container for you to take action from, which is exactly the reason why when you're dysregulated, there's no action, because you end up in fight, flight, freeze, flee, flop, buck, any of those that are, we discussed a lot of those in detail in my last workshop. And that's definitely one that you can revisit. If you're interested, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to send you the replay. But those responses are signs that your nervous system needs a little bit more nourishment and a little bit more safety added so that you can make these moves that have been feeling difficult. If saying no or having a rule or a boundary makes you feel guilty, it's a definite sign of conditioning. It has no reflection on your worth. And I think people get things really confused there. The only people who get upset when you set a boundary are the ones who benefited from you not having one. Okay? So just think about that, because you don't want to be walked all over. It's really, really important to begin understanding this in a healthy way and have the foundation to be able to implement and take action instead of just being like, I'm super knowledgeable about boundaries and I have none. Because you don't owe anyone access. It's kind of like your house. If somebody comes up and wants to come in your house, you don't owe them access just because they knocked on your door. So learning to kind of like release people pleasing, and which is just, it's just fear of rejection dressed up as generosity, right? It's not kindness to people please if it's costing you your peace. Okay? So it's like saying yes when you mean no is a form of self-betrayal, and your body feels it. So like I was saying before, saying yes even when your body is saying no, there's something there that is not connecting for you and allowing you to trust what your body is telling you, which can be a disconnection from intuition, a disconnection from, acting on your gut feelings, or something else that is like impeding your self trust. People pleasing is an unconscious attempt to control how others see you so that you don't have to feel uncomfortable. Okay? When you people please, you're giving others the power to define who you're allowed to be. And that is why it is incredibly limiting to our ability to come through authentically. Because people do think that people pleasing is about being nice. But most of the time, it's about avoiding discomfort. Discomfort in others, discomfort in yourself, discomfort in setting a limit. But that discomfort is quite literally where your freedom lives. It's where your authenticity lives. And when we have been conditioned to essentially not be safe to be ourselves, we are conditioned out of our authenticity. But we can get it back. And that's what we're going to be learning and putting into action through some EFT tapping and other actionable things as we go through this workshop. If we're looking a little bit deeper too, like before I wrap this up, a little deeper at good girl conditioning, it is really a quiet identity trap. Okay? Because good girls get praised, right? We get this validation and also rarely feel seen as who we really are. The good girl grows up to become a woman who then can't rest, can't ask for help, and can't say no without guilt. So the good girl becomes the good woman. And being good often means being agreeable. So being authentic then often means that you're misunderstood. And if you have enough of that good girl conditioning, then being misunderstood feels way too uncomfortable to handle, to be authentic. So the good girl's behavior is rewarded with approval. It's going to cost you your power. And most people are not thinking about that as they lean into it over and over and over again. And also not thinking about the fact that like you were not born into this. You were not born a good girl, a people pleaser, a boundaryless being. You were trained to be one, which also means we can rewire that and there can be a different reality. So many of the women that I work with and men feel like they're stuck, but they've checked all the boxes, and that's the thing. The good girl checks the boxes that society hands her, but your soul wants to write its own, okay? It wants to have its own boxes to check, not the ones that society handed you. So just some bonus thoughts before I wrap this up. Maybe some questions to ask yourself. What part of you still thinks you have to be perfect to be loved? And then where is it that you're prioritizing being liked over being true? And if you truly believed that you were safe to be seen, how would you show up differently? Really, what that comes down to is, are you performing your life or are you living it? So yeah, lean into that. I got one more for you too. What would change if you disappointed people, others, but you didn't disappoint yourself? I think those are some important questions to lean into, and we're going to lean into them more in the workshop too. I hope to see you there May 9th, 12 p.m. Eastern, for From Approval to Authenticity, free workshop. You can join at teresalearlevine.org/workshop. And I sure hope to see you there. I'm going to have some great stuff for you, and it's definitely going to be time well spent. So thanks for listening today. Would love to hear your takeaways about boundaries and people pleasing and how being a good girl is showing up in your life, business, and health. And I know you have so many choices when it comes to the podcasts that you listen to. So thank you so much for choosing Becoming More Me. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.